If you aren't integrating what you learn in life, it's like humping the air looking for an orgasm. You're just not going to get what you want. In today's lesson, I walk you through exactly how to integrate, why it's so important, and exactly what you need to do in order to take the lesson that you've learned and turn it into real action in your life. It is in this step that you will actually get the outcome you're looking for. It's very important, of course, to go through the deep work that we've talked about in past lessons and things that you've heard from me, but in reality, you must integrate it. And when you do, you will become the man you want to be. Before we dive in today's podcast, I just want to say thank you for being a listener. And as always, if you find this information valuable, if you find these episodes valuable, please share it with a friend so that more people have reach and access to this information. Of course, go on iTunes and give us a 5-star review if you found this valuable. It helps more people find it so we can help as many men as possible. And if you are the kind of man that is looking for a little bit more depth, that you want to dive deep into this work, into yourself, and become the man you want to be, then go to the website. You can sign up for the Coaching and Brotherhood. In that, you will get the accountability, the support, and the guidance you need to break through all of the internal barriers that stop you from really showing up in the world. You'll learn how to awaken your masculine power. You'll learn how to tap into your authentic self. You will learn how to dive deep into your mindset blocks and break through them so that you don't have to deal with them over and over and over again. Have you ever noticed that you're just constantly reliving a certain pattern in life? Maybe it's in your health, in your relationships, in your finances, and it just kind of keeps rearing its head. That has everything to do with mindset blocks. So I teach you how to break through those things so you don't have to deal with them anymore, and you can be the man you want to be. So as always, dive into that through the link in the description below and enjoy today's podcast. What is up, beautiful humans? This is Dr. Dave Cahotis. I am on a mission to forge strong, heart-centered, and purpose-driven men. And this podcast is here to help you stop managing your problems and start breaking free of stress, limiting beliefs, and excuses that stop you from executing at your fullest potential, living with passion, and being the man you want to be. So let's go. If you aren't integrating, you're not creating the life you want. I'll say it just like that. You can go through all of the books and the therapies and the coaching and the plant medicines. You can go on some epic long 40-day shamanic process where you go off into the desert and you sit in San Pedro like 9 times. But if you come home and you don't integrate what you've learned from your process, you'll just completely lose all of the work you just did. And why I bring this up is this is one of the most important lessons that I had to learn when doing this work. I always sort of assumed that, okay, I did the emotional work, I did the processing, I got rid of the trigger, I got rid of the thing that was holding me back, and now my life is just going to be good. All right, that's it. Okay, everybody watch out. And in reality, what I was creating was just another form of addictive cycling, just going into the work. I was literally using the deep work as its own form of addiction, meaning I was just going into it sort of to, ironically, to get away from the even deeper pain that I knew I needed to face. And so why this is important is if you want to get the results, yes, you must go through the work. You have to do the deep work. You have to be emotionally adaptable. You have to dive deeper into your psyche and your soma, meaning your somatic body, going down into the deep parts of yourself that you're not willing to face. And you have to come out with the wisdom. Now, what is the wisdom? Just like the hero will go down as if Frodo Baggins going, under the cavern down facing the dragon.
And, on the other side of the dragon, which is the ordeal, with the part of you that you are running from, that's what that represents. When you face that part of you and you reckon with it, what will happen is you now have taken command of that part of you that you've been running from, and you've reclaimed the piece of you that you knew you needed in order to be the man you wanted to be. What that means is, let's say, for instance, when you were a child, and I'll just jump ahead a little bit and talk about pattern really fast. When you were a child and you felt the first feeling of shame, maybe it came from an abandonment that you experienced as a kid, and you felt that sensation. Well, what happens is you didn't feel safe just to be who you are, just to be you, your whole self. You thought, well, man, by me being me, I'm not going to get my needs met. And so therefore you separated yourself psychologically, saying, well, who do I need to be in order to get my needs met? And sometimes that can be very confusing, especially as a kid, especially if you live in an abusive household, maybe your parents were a little bit inconsistent. And, for most people in this generation, their parents were not emotionally adaptable. They were not emotionally intelligent. And so therefore, abandonment, narcissism, codependency were all very, very common practices, especially in the 80s and 90s and anywhere before that. Absolutely. This is a time where we've become a lot more emotionally aware and emotionally adaptable. And so when you go through your work, when you go through your process, you will need to come back and reclaim that piece of you that you separated from. And when you do, you now have the wisdom that you were seeking, which is a wholeness. You now are a full membered individual. You are whole in that area. There's a lot of different pieces psychologically. Again, this is psychological. There's a lot of different pieces psychologically that are deep down in you that you need to go reclaim. That is part of the reclamation of self. That is what I call you going into yourself. And it's the hero's journey. It's why we know when we watch Harry Potter or we watch The Lion King or we watch Aladdin as an example, using a lot of Disney movies, you can probably tell I have kids, that we go down into these elements within ourselves. And these stories are there. And again, the reason I'm bringing this up is we know psychologically that there is something to those stories, that we are called to them, that there is something really special about that. And really what it's describing is us reclaiming the parts of us that we have lost. Now, when we come back and we have an opportunity to do something new, that is the moment where we must integrate. And integration means that we have taken a part of ourselves, we have become whole. We now know what it feels like, but if we don't do anything with that, we'll just go right back to being our old self. We'll just go right back to being the man we were rather than being the man we know we can be. So once you take the emotional charge out of the experience, meaning let's say you are checking your finances and it just keeps popping up that you're just like, man, this dang bank account never keeps getting bigger, right? You just keep having the same amount of money. Well, there is some type of emotional charge there. Maybe it's a sense of unworthiness. Maybe it's a sense of you're not allowed to receive. Maybe it's the feeling that if you did receive, then you would be selfish or you would be greedy or you would be a bad person or whatever, fill in the blank. Well, when you release that component, that emotional charge to the experience, you now have wisdom that you can receive, that you are deserving and all of whatever you want, right? So when you go to integrate, your new response must be planned. I'm going to say that again. When you go to integrate, your new response must be planned. Instead of reacting the old way, for instance, I'll give an example. When I would check my bank account, I would feel shame that I didn't have as much money as I wanted. And therefore, I would just jump off there really fast. I wouldn't actually do the work to make more sales or do any of that stuff because I would feel shame. I would feel stuck. And then I would just jump on Instagram or social media for a while. I'd be like, man, I'm just going to jump on this thing. Well, I didn't realize that because I was subconscious. And so I had to stop myself and realize, okay, well, there's some type of pattern here. I need to see this. And so I went through the work And I was able to recognize, okay, I'm in this pattern. And in that pattern, there was a statement, which is carrying vibration. And in that statement, there was all of this energy behind it. And just like that, I was able to then go through the process, go through my deep work, and then become a new version of myself. Each one of these processes, every time you do the deep work, that is an ego death in and of itself. You're going to go through a series of ego deaths. An ego is just you thinking that you know everything. That's it. That's all it is. The ego thinks it knows. It's a know-it-all. And it's meant to survive. The ego is designed to survive, and it will not like change. And in fact, it doesn't like change. It wants to maintain the status quo, but you know you are being called to something greater than yourself. And so you have to face yourself, which is your own ego. And that's not to say that you need to kill off every part of your ego. You become friends with it. You learn how to use it. That means that you still get to enjoy the nice things of life, but it means that you're not driven by it. And you get to really receive the beauty and the abundance of this world. So here's how to integrate. When you come back from the experience and you allow yourself to then feel a new feeling, you need to write down what that new sensation is. Because why I bring this up, this new sensation, this new visceral feeling, we are driven by feelings, whether you like it or not. You know, you can try to argue with me like, tooth and nail all day, every day, but we are driven by feelings. We just are. It's how we experience the world. We're driven to go after pleasure, and we're driven to stay away from pain. It's what the ego wants. It wants to avoid pain, and it wants to survive. And so we are driven by feeling. And what we don't realize is that our feelings are always on autopilot because our subconscious mind is always on autopilot. So we're trying to override that system by doing this work. Well, when you come back, you take the emotional charge out. You now remember the feeling, a new visceral feeling of, oh, that's what peace feels like. Oh, okay. Now you can only feel peace when you feel the true essence of chaos, right? How do you know what peace really feels like if you don't know what peace doesn't feel like, right? You can't know something until you know what it's not. I'm going to say that one more time because it's a little hard to grasp sometimes. You can't know what something is until you know what something is not. And what that means is if you want to experience love, you have to know what love is not in order to understand the true essence of love. Therefore, if you want to experience the true essence of love, you have to experience heartbreak and abandonment and separation and disconnection and all of fill in the blank, right? Like you have to experience all of that. But why that's so important is that when you give yourself the opportunity to go deeper into separation, into abandonment, and you allow yourself to feel all of those parts that don't exist as love, then all of a sudden, boom, it's as if you go through the darkness and like a slingshot, it puts you right back into the light. That's why I said the only way out is through. The only way out is through. You can't run from the darkness. You can't run from your own shadows. You can't run from your own pain and all the reasons that you feel that you're not worthy and all the things that, right? You can't run from that. It'll chase you down. And what you resist will persist. I'm going to say that one more time. What you resist will persist. It'll constantly rear its head. It'll constantly find you. And it'll constantly show up in a way that you don't want it to show up as. And so your work is then to go through the deep work, figure out what's bothering you, where your triggers are and all that stuff. Do the deep work. And then when you come back, you're going to integrate. And the way you integrate is that you know that there's a new visceral feeling. Remember that feeling. This is important. And in that feeling, there's a new statement. Because again, energy is a vibration, and vibration carries information. And that information is a statement. And I want you to write down both of those things, right? What's the energy? What's the visceral feel? All right, my new feeling is wholeness, as an example. As I'm kind of going back to one of my deep processes. Remember wholeness. Man, that was incredible. And why I want to bring that up is that I want you to start to tune into that. So you're going to start to tune into wholeness. Wholeness. Yeah, wholeness. Okay. You know what the statement is, right? You know what the information is. Maybe that statement is, yeah, I'm worthy of receiving. I am incredibly worthy of receiving. Absolutely. I'm complete. I am whole. I am love. I am all that I want. Holy shit, I'm already all that I want. Whoa. Right? You kind of notice that it carries this vibration, this information. In the vibration, it carries information. And now what you're going to do with that is you are going to make an action plan, a step, one step. It doesn't have to be a lot, just one thing that you're going to do. How are you going to express that new sensation? How are you going to express that sense of love or that sense of peace or that sense of wonderment or that sense of abundance or that sense of power? How are you going to now express that? How are you going to change yourself that you now become the beacon of that thing? The reason we want what we want is not because we think when we get there that we're going to feel better, but rather that we can become that thing that is it. I'm going to say that one more time. The reason we want what we want is actually because we don't truly viscerally believe that we can actually have it. So in order to have it, we have to become it. And the way we become it is that we actually have to feel it. We feel all the reasons that we can't have it. Like I said, if you want love, you got to know what love is not. You got to feel abandonment, separation, disconnection, all of these things. And you're probably thinking, man, that seems like a lot of fucking work just to get love. Like, I just want to, I always laugh. Just want a blowjob and a nap. Come on, man. Like, what the hell? Now you got to go through it. You got to go through the work. There's no other way. There is no other way. We live in a dual polar relative universe. Here we are. Up must have down, black must have white. We have to experience it. If we want true freedom, we have to feel caged. We have to feel trapped. We have to feel stuck. And so the thing you actually want is through all of the pain. But that's why we do the deep work, and that's why we have support. And the reason you're carrying all the pressure of life is because you're not willing to feel it. You're carrying that pressure and it's weighing you down. It shows up in the form of stress. It shows up in the form of disease. It shows up in the form of physical symptom. You might start noticing little things like popping up, eczema or tinnitus or back pain or whatever it is. When you are holding pressure, your body is not designed for that. It's not designed as a carrier of pressure. It's designed to be a flow-through system. That's why when we eat food, it goes out the other way. It's a flow-through system. Same thing with energy. You got to be able to let that shit go, literally and figuratively, right? Let that shit go. Allow yourself to release. So when you do, that's when you can decide. Integration is the way. If you don't integrate, then you're just running in circles. It's just like mental masturbation. You're not doing anything. You think you're doing something. You might feel better for a minute, but it'll just come back. So you have to integrate, right? So what you need to do is you need to focus on the sensation, write down the new statement, right? The new information in that. And then what action will you take that expresses that new way of being? In another lesson, I'm going to talk about what's called setting the vibe. And this is for any guys in the online course. So if you're going through the online course, you will get access to this. And I want you to remember the integration piece because this is important. In the setting the vibe, we're going to talk about owning the room. And when I say owning the room, I mean like you walking into a room and you be like, I'm the fucking king of the castle. Like, this is my room. No matter what, even if you are a peon, you're at Hollywood and you're like a production manager, right? Like you can still own the room because you own your vibe. And vibe is literally just energy. Just energy. What energy are you putting out? What emotion, what state through your own focus? Now you can't intend your focus if you don't do the deep work. You have to do the deep work. You have to expand your consciousness. And your consciousness is just the awareness of self. And the awareness of self, when you go deep into yourself, right, and you reclaim all the parts of it, you expand your awareness. And you become a more conscious individual, a more conscious businessman, a more conscious entrepreneur, a more conscious leader. And people will flock to you. You will become magnetic. People will want to be around you. That's a beautiful thing, right? Money and all the joy and all the fun and all the sex you want will come to you. Now, are you ever done? No. That's why it's called becoming an unbreakable man. It's not be an unbreakable man, right? It's becoming. You will constantly be on the path of becoming. I'm constantly shedding. I feel incredible, way more than I ever did. Even last year, the year before that. I'm not even the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm not even the same person I was a year ago. I'm a completely new person because every day I go through that process and every day it gets better and better and better. And do I have moments that suck? Absolutely. There's no such thing as you're done. There's no such thing as, and I will also say, like, you can absolutely be broken. Life can throw you its curveballs, but you're adaptable. You know how to ride the waves of emotion. And so that's why you need to be able to really focus on the emotion, because that's how we run our life. That's how we make decisions and choices, is based on emotion. We think it's going to make us feel better. But if you already feel great, then you have free will. You could have chocolate and vanilla. That'd be cool. All right. If you have questions about integration, reach out if you're in the Brotherhood, and I will see you in the next lesson.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Unbreakable Man podcast. If you found this episode valuable, then go ahead and leave a 5-star review explaining how this podcast has helped you so more people can find it. If you want to be a part of the Brotherhood, then click the link in the description below. You can also check out the Unbreakable Man experience if you're ready to face a deeper challenge and change your life for the better in just 3 days. All right, guys. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate you. And as always, stay unbreakable.